Alright, YouTube, Huffington Post is not known for its journalistic integrity, its intellectual honesty, or anything along those lines. This is the same group that after Trump won New Hampshire, they said, ugh, GOP goes sexist, racist, xenophobic, Kasich in second, Rubio in fifth. You know, sort of begging the question, I suppose. But they're honest this time. They've written what they call a premature obituary of Hillary Clinton's presidential aspirations and sort of compiled a list of people likely to be blamed if and when she loses. I'm leaning towards when she loses, honestly. Now, the fact that a group like the Huffington Post, let's face it, everybody there, if they're not on board with Hillary Clinton, they've been told to shut the fuck up. For them to write something like this that's almost really, it's scathing about Hillary Clinton. Oh, she's going to blame all these people if she loses. Is telling because you don't generally see this from the media groups that support a candidate unless they expect that candidate to lose. You would see maybe some of the sort of satirical stuff about Romney suddenly disappearing before November in 2012 when it was clear, again, he wasn't going to win. Most sane individuals judged that he was doomed at that point. And people had a little chuckle because it was a little bit of gallows humor, honestly. This is, too, from the perspective of somebody who's pro-Hillary, this is gallows humor. It's basically an admission that her campaign is on the skids and it's not particularly likely to recover. I'll go through and just briefly name the things that they've listed here so you don't have to go to the article. These are groups that Hillary Clinton will blame when and if she loses. Number 1, the media. Number 2, the Russians. Number 3, millennials. Number 4, Bernie Sanders. Number 5, Bill Clinton. Number 6, sexists. I would put this at number 1 myself. Number 7, Obama people. Number 8, James Comey. And number 9, Debbie Wasserman Schultz and the DNC. That's a pretty good list. They're not necessarily in exactly the order I would have put them in, but pretty good summation of all of the different groups that would be considered involved in her defeat. Everybody, of course, but herself. Now, candidates, normally, if they lose, unless it's a complete washout and they're just really disgruntled. Like, you remember, Al Gore, he bowed out kind of gracefully after sort of pressing the issue. Then he disappeared for a couple years, grew a beard, wandered around the rainforest, I guess, and then came out like a wild man to rant about saving the environment because of CO2 emissions. Of course, Mitt Romney disappeared for a couple days, then he was seen pumping his own gas. People had a laugh, thought it was funny. McCain disappeared completely, and not hide nor hair was heard from him for some weeks thereafter, and he still doesn't even really talk about the fact that he was defeated, which I guess is to his credit as opposed to people that bring it up over and over again. It's like it's old news. Like, okay, Al Gore, we get it. You feel like you got shafted, and kind of admittedly he did in Florida. But at the same time, nobody cares anymore. It's almost 2 decades later. But for the Huffington Post, of all groups, to admit that there's even a possibility of Clinton being defeated is quite telling. Because can you imagine if Breitbart were to come out tomorrow and have a premature obituary for Trump's campaign, say, oh, woe is us, when Trump loses, here are the people. He'll blame the media, and he'll blame, his racist fans maybe for making him look bad, and then he'll blame he'll blame the Clinton corporate machine, the DNC. He'll say it was rigged. He'll blame the DHS or something. It would be an admission of basically the people ideologically supporting him as a candidate being terrified, being severely frightened of losing, and expecting that there's no longer a fairly good chance that they have even the opportunity to win. It's sort of passed them by. They realize the gig is basically up. Now, with Romney, I thought several months before the election it was pretty likely. It was obvious he was sliding away, he was losing it, he wasn't doing too well, and it looked like increasingly he was almost certain to lose. With Hillary Clinton, really, the debates haven't even begun, and we already see that pattern setting in where she's now continuously sliding backwards. She's only maintaining dominance in a handful of the competitive states. She's lost her chance, number 1, to capitalize upon an early deficit Trump had in places like Arizona or Georgia. She's lost that opportunity completely. The lean red states that were once toss-ups increasingly are probably out of her reach. North Carolina has probably moved out. Ohio, certainly Iowa and Florida at this point appear beyond her reach, to the point where Trump now has safely about 250 electoral votes, which is very close to what he needs. If he swings two more states, any other two states, he's won the election. And I think that the average Hillary partisan realizes that the reason why she's losing steam and falling behind now in general election polling and beginning to very quickly lose steam in states that she really needs to win and she can't afford to lose at all or she loses the election, has nothing to do with the Clinton partisans. It has to do with, number one, Hillary Clinton, unlike Trump, hasn't hardened her support properly. She hasn't gotten people enthusiastic. That's a huge disadvantage. Number two, she's at a disadvantage with independents, and with independents increasingly making up their mind, deciding who they're going to vote for, the majority are going for Trump. Number three, they realize that the third parties that are in play are predominantly robbing Clinton of votes because they're primarily composed of young voters, the under 35 demographic that usually leans more heavily blue. To the point at which every other story they're talking about is, oh, this is no time for a protest vote. Bernie Sanders said so, so you have to listen to him. And it falls on deaf ears because the people maintaining that third-party membership largely are people who now think Sanders is a sellout. And they're right. We here in Vermont understand that too. Now, I will point out one thing, which is, generally connected with that. The one Reuters Ipsos release saying that they're expecting Vermont to go for Trump is probably not true. However, it is true that Clinton is by no means leading by a landslide margin in this state. In the one reliable poll taken, she hadn't cracked 50%. If Trump has indeed gobbled up a lot of the Bernie bro support here who feel cheated out of the election, it remains within the realm of possibility that he could win my state of Vermont. It's certainly more competitive than it was when Obama won it with, I think 68% of the vote. Hillary Clinton apparently can't even crack 50. I still expect her to win it, probably by a double-digit total. But it will be by nowhere near the margin that Obama won it in either election. It won't be anywhere near the margin that Kerry won it against Bush, that Al Gore won it against Bush. It'll be nowhere even in the ballpark. It'll be at least 10 points lower than that. And it'll be telling. And you see this also. The Bernie bro supporters abandoning Hillary because of the DNC's dirty tricks have apparently taken a toll in Rhode Island and New Jersey as well, states where Sanders did well in some cases. It looks like increasingly the majority of them did not back Clinton. They're sitting it out, voting third party or protest voting for Trump. And the thing is, the DNC, the left-wing so-called, the Democratic partisans really, there aren't many actual leftists left in the United States, honestly, need to understand the reason why this is happening and why they're toothless to do anything about it. In fact, I would advise them, if I were Clinton's campaign advisor, I would tell her to have Bernie Sanders shut the fuck up about the issue. Because every time he tries to goad people into voting for Hillary Clinton, he causes more of his former fans not to vote for her. Specifically because it increasingly makes him look like a partisan sellout. Here's an independent who joined up with the Democrats, got shafted, got browbeaten by the entire DNC, endorsing his opponent, mysteriously purchasing a $500,000 property, which looks a little bit odd. And he's trying to get people to vote for somebody who he himself called unqualified. It doesn't work that way. Clinton should actually be upset. I mean, if he wants to poison pill Hillary's campaign out of spite for being cheated, all he has to do is ramble and rave about how great she is, contradict his own statements, and make himself look like more of a fool than he is. His political career is over. He's not going to get reelected. When next time Bernie Sanders is theoretically up, I don't expect him to run. I don't. I expect him to drop the issue and retire and go live out his final years on his new beachfront home up in the Champlain Valley. That's what I expect him to do. Or maybe he'll face so many people that are miffed about the fact that Clinton lost because of him, or why didn't he win, why didn't he refuse to endorse her, that he'll finally move. He'll open up a Ben & Jerry's factory in Idaho or something like that. But yeah, it's interesting to see the Huffington Post for the first time that I can ever recollect posting something that's intelligent. which is, yeah, here's a premature obituary. It's only premature because the election hasn't been held yet, but all odds favor a Trump victory at this point. I know that Nate Silver might be late to the party again and not want to admit this until it comes down to the wire. Just like until well after Super Tuesday, around the time of, the New York primary, he refused to say that Trump was probably going to be the nominee. He maintained at first, well, he's a flash in the pan. He won New Hampshire, but he's never going to crack 30%. Rubio will take it away. Cruz will take it away or something. Then he said, oh, Super Tuesday's a one-off. Now he falters. Or he's just not cobbling together enough electoral points to actually make it across the threshold. It'll be contested. They'll give it to Kasich or Rubio or something. All of these things that, in any realm of logical reasoning, they were never going to happen. It was never going to happen. As soon as Nevada was done, it was clear who the likely nominee was going to be. After Super Tuesday, it was clear who the presumptive nominee was. And as soon as the New York primary was over, it was certain who the nominee already was. To anybody with common sense, analyzing it from an unbiased perspective. Nate Silver, of course, not being unbiased. That's his problem. He's attempting to analyze instead of just use his numbers. His numbers, while not inherently accurate, of course, in the primaries they failed several times, and they certainly failed to predict the winner, but at the same time still more accurate than his off-cuff analysis, which isn't working. We're undergoing a paradigm shift. Check the electoral map and you'll see that that's the case. So it's retarded for him to even bother at this point. That's what I would say about Nate Silver, Huffington Post, Salon, all of these groups. They're going almost certainly to lose. And there are going to be many tears because the person that they've convinced themselves is the next Adolf Hitler is now exceedingly likely to be the next president of the United States. It'll be funny to see them crying. Just like it was funny, honestly, it was funny to see the Republicans cry when Mitt Romney lost, because a lot of them, like the Karl Roves, they swore up and down that Romney was ahead, and I told them no, and they called me a shill, and I was right, and I got to drink up their tears. It was fucking hilarious. The same way, people on the left right now are telling me that there's no chance at all that Trump wins the election. And I own that there's a small chance he loses, but I think I'm probably going to get to, once again, for the third election in a row, drink a lot of tears. It's going to be wonderful. That's about all. Peace out.